Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Caspian Policy Center. Welcome to the 30 Years of U.S. Caspian Diplomatic Relations event. I'd like to welcome all our attendees, and I'd like to thank all the guests and panelists for joining today's important conversation. I'm Efkan Nifty, the director of the Caspian Policy Center. Today, we are hosting senior guests from the U.S. government and the governments of the Caspian countries. Together, we will reflect on 30 years of diplomatic relations and consider opportunities for strengthening these partnerships. This is a unique opportunity for the regional officials to express their goals and intentions with Washington, and for Washington to outline how the next 30 years of diplomatic relations can build upon the last 30. I hope today's discussion is only the beginning of amplified cooperation among the countries of the Caspian region and the United States, that out of this conversation, our participants and our esteemed audience will seek to engage with one another with new energy to promote peace, prosperity, and continued partnership. Platforms such as this allow us to outline a framework of what must be done, though many challenges still lie ahead. In the past 30 years, the United States has established multiple levels of engagement, including political dialogues, economic investment, education, professional exchanges, security assistance, and much more. US-led initiatives like the C5+1 with Central Asia, the Blue Dot Network, and American Corners are valuable, but today we want to explore what more the United States can do from the perspective of the countries of the region. Many of these countries face historic challenges, and the United States has no intention to withdraw from the region. I want to thank the State Department, the embassies of the countries assembled, and my staff for their diligence and commitment to making this event happen while navigating ever-evolving COVID-19 pandemic. I wish we did this event in an in-person format, but unfortunately, with the COVID situation, we have to have it in a virtual format. I'd like to thank you here, our sponsor Chevron, for supporting this event. With this, I'd like to turn over to our board member and also CPC Senior Fellow, former Ambassador Richard Hoagland. Welcome again.
Thank you so much for that, Efkan. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The United States has stood firmly for 30 years with every country in the Caspian region. We're celebrating 30 years of independence, 30 years of bilateral relationships. And during that period, US policy has been remarkably stable. It has been based on the fundamental of supporting the independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of every country in the region. Of course, we're in, shall we say, interesting times once again, but that's part of history, and we'll see how we live through that. We are going to have two keynote speakers today, senior leaders from the State Department, Ambassador Don Liu and Ms. Karen Donfried. They will make their opening statements, and then we will go to statements from important people, senior leaders from the region. We ask those of you in the audience to please submit your questions using the chat function. We hope there'll be time for questions, but we look very much forward to hearing what our guests have to say today for this important program. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Assistant Secretary of State Donald Liu. He has extensive experience in the region. And to me, this is very special because we have worked together for many years. In fact, at one time, he was my deputy. He is now my senior partner. So Ambassador Liu, over to you, sir.
Dick, thank you very much. And everything I learned in the State Department, I learned with Dick Hoagland. Ambassador Kazakhstan, Deputy Minister Darsalia, Mr. Hajiev, dear ambassadors, dear colleagues, a very happy birthday to all of us as we celebrate this important 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the United States and the countries of the Caspian region. It has been the honor of my life to have served in our embassies in Tbilisi, in Baku, and in Bishkek. If you'll allow me, I'll reflect a little on my time working in Central Asia and offer some thoughts about the challenges faced by Central Asian leaders in light of recent unrest in Kazakhstan. So my relationship with Central Asia spans almost a quarter century. I first traveled to Central Asia in 1999 as a backpacker with my wife. We toured the ancient Silk Road cities of Khiva, Bukhara, Samarkand, and Chakri Subs. It was the first time that we experienced the tremendous warmth and hospitality of the people of Central Asia. Over a decade later, I worked with Dick Hoagland in the Central Asia office of the State Department to create a new relationship with Central Asia that included counterterrorism cooperation in support of coalition operations in Afghanistan. That effort, with more assistance, more engagement, and more strategic thinking, is really the basis for our modern relations with this important region. Then I had the opportunity to work twice in Kyrgyzstan, spending a total of 6 of the past 18 years there. And I know that Central Asian people sometimes feel frustrated by their perception of the slow pace of change. But as a foreigner who has had the opportunity to come and to go over many years, I can see tangible progress throughout the region. I want to offer a few examples. So when I first traveled to Central Asia, many of the Americans in this format will share this experience. It felt like walking into another world. The customs, the food, news and information all seemed cut off from the rest of the planet. And for most of us, that was part of the charm of the region. But of course, it also comes at a cost. Now, I was back in Tashkent in Nur-Sultan just this past December, about a month and a half ago. And we had plov, but we also had sushi, and we had Italian food, and we met senior officials with whom we shared many common values. Today, Central Asia is undisputedly linked with the rest of the world through the internet, through international education, and through our shared global culture. My wife is a public health specialist, and through her work, I've learned a lot about progress made in healthcare over the past 30 years in Central Asia. Our colleagues in USAID, the Centers for Disease Control, the EU, the UN, have all worked hand in hand with Central Asian doctors and medical professionals to increase both healthcare cooperation, but also capacity building. And during this really devastating pandemic, that has included sharing of life-saving vaccines, ventilators, oxygen concentrators, laboratory equipment, and equipment to keep heroic healthcare workers safe. Now, the hardest issue of all, democracy and human rights, there we also see real progress. And I'll use the example of my time in Bishkek. Kyrgyzstan is known, it's famous for its vibrant civil society and independent media. In the immediate aftermath of the revolution in 2020, organized crime figures sought to demonstrate their influence and control over the new government, just as they had with previous governments. But civil society and brave journalists spoke out. Stories continued to be published in newspapers, on the radio, and in blogs, demanding action against former corrupt official Rainbek Matraimov, also known popularly as Raim Milyon, and drug trafficker Kamchibek Kolbayev. As a direct result, the U.S. government placed sanctions on Matraimov and his family and offered a $5 million reward for Kolbayev. Last year, the government arrested both of these men, and Matraimov was convicted on felony charges. Both men were forced to pay a total of more than $30 million in criminal fines. Now, that story isn't finished, but it is evidence of real, genuine progress. Finally, let me turn to the dramatic events in Kazakhstan. We have valued our partnership with Kazakhstan for 30 years. On economic and commercial reform, Kazakhstan has moved farther and faster than other countries in the region. Now, immediately following the unrest last month, the United States condemned the acts of violence and the destruction of property. We called for Kazakhstanis to respect and defend constitutional institutions. That was a clear reference to the presidency and to the parliament. We also called for restraint by both government and protesters, respect for human rights, and the defense of media freedom. The challenge now for the government of Kazakhstan is to engage the legitimate concerns of its people, to continue its political and economic reforms, and to restore its international legitimacy on human rights. And to do so, they must make sure that armed and violent protesters are held accountable for their actions with fair, impartial, and transparent trials. They also need to show to the people of Kazakhstan that they're holding police and security forces accountable for acts of disproportionate violence, and that they do not intend to criminalize nonviolent free speech. There should always be a clear focus on rule of law and transparent judicial processes for all of Kazakhstan's citizens. The challenge for the West is to support Kazakhstan in a manner that is not lecturing or hectoring, but allows Kazakhstan to recognize and to address the human rights problems that occurred in January, and to move forward with social, political, and economic reforms necessary to prevent further unrest. If they can do that, there is a broad consensus in Washington and in Europe to continue our deep engagement with Kazakhstan and with the broader region. That process has already begun. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken spoke to Foreign Minister Tiluberdi on January 6th. On January 19th, Foreign Minister Tiluberdi traveled to Brussels to meet EU leaders. The White House spoke to Ambassador Kazakhan last week, and the State Department will speak to Ambassador Ashibayev and the Foreign Ministry in the coming days. We look forward to a visit by Ambassador Kazakhan later this month, and the opportunity for additional high-level engagement as Kazakhstan's government works to restore its international legitimacy and demonstrates progress on transparency and accountability. We are particularly interested in the commission announced by President Tokayev to investigate the January events. Any such investigation should be transparent and should be credible. In conclusion, the stakes are high for Kazakhstan, but also for Central Asia. Russia and China will want to use this moment as a wedge between the United States, Europe, and Central Asia. I believe if we work together, there is an opportunity to use this terrible incident as a reason to support one another and a reason to create deeper and more lasting ties with Central Asia. Dear colleagues, thank you again for inviting me today, and a happy birthday to all of us. Dick, back to you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Liu. We really appreciated those comments. Next on our schedule was going to be Assistant Secretary of State for Europe and Eurasia, Karen Donfried. She has been called away, not surprisingly, for a special meeting this morning. However, she has prepared a video, and we're waiting for that video to arrive. It is not in our mailbox yet, but as soon as it does, we will play it. So in that case, we're going to move forward. We're going to now hear from representatives from the region. And let me remind you, we're going to go alphabetically by country for those who are present today. That means we're going to start with Azerbaijan. Yes, sir.
Ambassador Hogan, we have the video by the Assistant Secretary, so maybe our staff will play it first, and then we can start the regional.
I'm very glad to hear that. This shows you how the new world works. Things zip around the world in momentary fashion, and we make accommodation for what happens. So let's please listen to this opening statement by Assistant Secretary of State Karen Donfried. She's the former president, U.S. president of the German Marshall Fund, and she has extensive experience in this part of the world. So let's go on to the video, please. Thank you.
Thank you to the Caspian Policy Center for organizing this event and for the opportunity to speak with you today about the United States' relationship with the countries of the South Caucasus. As we mark the 30th anniversary of Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia's independence from the Soviet Union, there is no greater supporter of independence and democracy in the South Caucasus than the United States. Our approach to the South Caucasus is a regional one, founded on our support for the sovereignty and independence of each of the three countries. During these past 30 years, each of these countries has taken significant steps forward in building state sovereignty, security, and resilience. Yet, of course, many serious challenges remain. Recent decades have been marked by devastating conflict and displacement in the region, economic and political instability, and uneven progress toward democratic development. Tensions continue as a result of disputed borders, violations of human rights, Russia's ongoing occupation of Georgia, and more. Russia's increased threat to Ukraine and to European security more broadly is being closely watched by the South Caucasus countries. Our efforts in recent weeks have made clear our preference for diplomacy, and we are prepared to move forward where there's the possibility for cooperation if Russia de-escalates its aggression toward Ukraine and approaches negotiations in a spirit of reciprocity. But if it chooses a different path, the United States and our allies and partners are prepared to impose severe consequences should Russia choose further aggression. As President Biden and Secretary Blinken have said, Russia will have to decide now how it will respond. It's important to remember Russia's aggression didn't start with Ukraine, and it may not end with Ukraine. Russia invaded Georgia in 2008 and continues to occupy more than 20% of the country over 13 years later, contravening its international commitments by maintaining troops on Georgia's soil without Georgia's consent. Russia's invasion and occupation of Georgia has led to the internal displacement of more than 290,000 Georgian citizens and divided many Georgians from their families and livelihoods. Turning to the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, as a co-chair of the OSCE Minsk Group, the United States remains engaged in supporting and facilitating genuine dialogue to resolve all outstanding issues related to or resulting from the conflict. The United States is committed to helping the sides negotiate a long-term political settlement and to address the humanitarian impact of the fighting, including the removal of landmines, the release of all detainees, and accounting for all missing persons, and the full and expeditious exchange of remains. We also continue to press both governments to investigate alleged human rights violations and violations of international humanitarian law, and to hold perpetrators accountable. The United States also is ready to play a helpful role in promoting reconciliation between Turkey and Armenia. We applaud both countries for engaging in diplomacy and dialogue, and we are encouraged by the first meeting between Armenian and Turkish special envoys on January 14. The Turkish-Armenian dialogue has the potential to increase regional stability, deter malign influence, and create a more prosperous future for citizens of the region. We have offered our support for dialogue and collaboration among and led directly by the three South Caucasus countries. We recognize, for example, that despite political differences, the countries of the region face some common economic and environmental challenges. We want to work with the South Caucasus countries to build regional economic ties that benefit all countries, as well as strategies that foster a diverse, affordable, reliable, and clean energy mix. I'd like to turn last, but most certainly not least, to democratic development in the region. Of course, we all know that democratic development takes time and takes hard work. In our 245th year of independence, the United States is still working to improve our democracy and live up to our founding principle of a more perfect union. The United States stands ready to assist all three countries in this endeavor to strengthen democratic institutions and enhance respect for human rights, fundamental freedoms, and the rule of law. As Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia begin to chart their next 30 years of independence, the United States will remain a committed partner in efforts to build a peaceful, democratic, prosperous future for the South Caucasus. We will offer our support where there are opportunities to build people-to-people ties and economic linkages throughout the region. And we will offer our friendship to help each of the countries find peace, sovereignty, and independence. Congratulations on these 30 years of independence. Thank you.
And thanks to you, Assistant Secretary, especially thanks to your team and to your technicians who made this important presentation available on just a moment's notice. We will now move to the representatives of the region for their important comments. And as I said, we will start with Azerbaijan, and we will be hearing from Mr. Hikmat Hajiev, who is the foreign policy advisor to the president of Azerbaijan and someone that I've worked with personally very closely. Over to you, sir. The floor is yours.
Dear Ambassador Hoagland, dear participants and dear friends, ambassadors, I also greet everyone from Baku, and also thank Caspian Policy Center for organizing with an important event on the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between my country and countries from our region and Central Asia with the United States. United States and Azerbaijan cooperation for 30 years, and it was really a success story in terms of developing a friendship and cooperation between two countries. The history of ties and this friendship between our countries has been well explained by the book of Ambassador Hafiz Pashayev, Manifest of an Ambassador. It was also for us as a younger diplomat at that time working as a Minister of Foreign Affairs, the gateway to understand the delicacies of US-Azerbaijani cooperation. Support by the United States to Azerbaijan and strengthen sovereignty and the independence of my country. And this support has proved itself as an important component of the regional security. And throughout these years, United States and Azerbaijani cooperation has also matured and raised to the new levels. And 9/11 was a turning point also in the United States and Azerbaijani cooperation. And we always say that friends in need and friends indeed. And Azerbaijan also joined with an alliance against terrorism and provided its logistic support and also troop contribution to the mission in Afghanistan, where Azerbaijan and United States soldiers, shoulder to shoulder, fought against terrorism. And Iraq mission was yet another operation where Azerbaijan and US soldiers operated in an operational theater of operation in Iraq. And energy security, yet another important component of the United States and Azerbaijani cooperation, and with the support of the United States government and also active engagement of the United States companies, provide Azerbaijan with the opportunity and independently and a direct way export its hydrocarbon resources to the international market. Therefore, throughout the years, energy cooperation, fight against terrorism was a key component of the United States and Azerbaijan cooperation. In our relations, bilateral trade, economic relations are also key spheres. In 2021, trade balance between the United States and Azerbaijan was around 400 USD. That's not enough, and we do think, but it doesn't fully reflect the potential of two countries. We have an ambition and intention to raise the speaker even far higher. And Azerbaijan is the biggest recipient of the United States investment in the region of the South Caucasus. It's roughly around 19 billion USD. Around 300 United States companies are currently functioning in Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan is part and also investor in the United States and economy. But we need to do more to expand economic trade ties and stimulate more United States companies' investment in Azerbaijan and wider region of South Caucasus, and especially the non-oil sector development is a key in front of the reconstruction of the liberated territories of Azerbaijan is now a key priority in front of Azerbaijani government activities, and we are also encouraging more active involvement of the United States companies in investing and also supporting Azerbaijani government's endeavors in liberating, reconstruction and rehabilitation and recovery of this territory, as we are obliged to build 7 brand new cities, even from the scratch, as everything has been destroyed in the liberated territories. Azerbaijan is also somehow switching from the security-based foreign policy concept to the economic policy concept in our foreign policy, as we have already resolved our main security challenge, because before Azerbaijan has throughout the decades suffered from the security deficit because our territory was under occupation. We're suffering from the fact of military occupation. Economic business cooperation with the United States and Azerbaijan is mutually beneficial. Contracts with Azerbaijani companies are also contributed to opening up new jobs in the United States, and especially our cooperation in aero and space spheres and other spheres proved itself quite effective. We're also looking forward to increase people-to-people contacts and tourism cooperation, and also work with the regions of the United States and individual states, as well as we also see that there is a huge potential. Regional security issues. Since the Karabakh conflict is resolved has went to the dustbin of the history, Azerbaijan is looking into the future. Fact of military occupation is over. Azerbaijan put an end to the wrong precedent of drawing maps or changing internationally recognized borders of the states by use of force. It's now over. And Azerbaijan is pursuing agenda of peace. Agenda of peace is a message about building more peaceful relations with the neighboring countries and also surrounding countries and also with our partners. That also applies for the United States, European Union, and some other partners as well. And Azerbaijan is in also process with our partners and neighboring countries to build the region of the South Caucasus free from the conflicts and wars. In other words, to build the region of the South Caucasus from the fragmentation to the integration, and to build a regional cooperation based on the mutually beneficial relations. And we're also looking forward, as it was also in a high level suggested by the authorities of Azerbaijan government, of working, starting at least negotiations on the peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Basic principles of this treaty should be based on the fundamental norms and principles of international law, especially respecting territorial integrity and sovereignty of states. The region needs for new branding strategy, and Azerbaijan is ready to play its role of building integrated region of South Caucasus. And here we also see United States as an important partner. Establishing of the new corridors, especially Zangezur corridor, we also see an opportunity for neighboring Armenia as well. It can help tremendously Armenia to transform herself from the landlocked country into the land-linked country that can play an important role, where our Central Asian partners can also benefit from the Zangezur corridor. But Zangezur corridor doesn't exclude other potential corridors that we have already established in the region with the neighboring Georgia. That's also beneficial for our two countries. In other words, we always said to our Armenian colleagues that Armenia can also learn and take an experience of Georgia and Azerbaijan mutually beneficial cooperation. That's a role model of the regional cooperation and respect between these two neighboring countries. They can also join the stream and get benefits from that. We also need to see new parameters of the United States strategy to the region of the South Caucasus. I would like to remind one key pillars of the Bill Clinton administration strategy with regard to the region of the South Caucasus, but based mainly on the engagement and dialogue. And from Azerbaijan perspective, we're always ready for some more engagement and dialogue with our partners from the United States. I'm also believing that our United States partners are also ready for that. As regard to our brother country from the Central Asia, Azerbaijan has a historical linkage with our Central Asian partners. And therefore, in the United States cooperation with the Central Asia, as our current platform once again demonstrates, and Azerbaijan is ready, Central Asia plus Azerbaijan plus United States sort of format of discussion and cooperation. And Ambassador Donfried also mentioned about post-conflict developments in our region, and especially alleged human rights violations and war crimes in the context of the conflict. And Azerbaijani people this month will celebrate 30th anniversary of the Fojala genocide, and therefore comprehensive approach of looking and also investigating all military crimes and war crimes is an important component of building justice and reconciliation. And therefore, we also expect that Republic of Armenia will very seriously look at this issue of war crimes that have been committed against the Azerbaijani people throughout the occupation. And also, it's really extremely unacceptable for Azerbaijani people to see the level of destruction that has been committed in our territories. And almost everything has been destroyed. We couldn't have any single stone or having a single building in our liberated territories, but everything has been destroyed in a manner that our Ardam city has also been compared with some other destroyed cities in the Second World War. But we are turning that page, but we are looking forward. But of course, we cannot close our eyes, close our hearts to the memories. Memories will continue to live with us. In a post-conflict process, confidence building measures are also crucially important. We also would like to see it as part of the confidence building measures and regional cooperation. In that process, mine action, Azerbaijan, unfortunately, I would say, is among the most contaminated country with regard to the mines in the world. Before, based on the landmines monitor report, Azerbaijan was among the 10 most contaminated countries, but our recent surveys show that Azerbaijan may probably end up being the most 5 contaminated country with the landmines. Therefore, Armenians' more active openness and engagement with us with regard to the clearance of these mines, and also international communities, and particularly United States support for Azerbaijan for humanitarian mine action will be very much appreciated. I also appreciate that Ambassador Donfried mentioned missing persons. Missing persons file is also part of the confidence building measures, because we still have 4,000 missing persons, and we also looking at the experience of the United States in the region of the Balkans, where International Commission for Missing Persons has been established, and it's proved itself a very effective instrument, and we are looking forward to work with that instrument. And Armenian diaspora in the United States, unfortunately, most of the times they played as part of the solution rather than part of they didn't or played being in a part of the problem rather than the solution for so many years. Our message is for Armenian diaspora, they can be part of the solution, and they can also have a potential and resources to contribute building better relations between the Republic of Armenia and Azerbaijan. Therefore, I encourage them and to refrain from using their own resources for unnecessary lobbying or unnecessarily undermining the image and status of Azerbaijan in the United States. Instead, they can use their potential and financial resources for agenda of the peace that Azerbaijan is trying to do in the region of South Caucasus. The 30 years anniversary of the United States-Azerbaijan diplomatic relations, I also joined all of these congratulations and congratulate our partners from the United States State Department and other institutions throughout the years. Along with Azerbaijani diplomats, we work together to strengthen our cooperation and friendship that's also reflecting the will of our people. And now it's in a time to take a stock and look in the future, and Azerbaijan continues to be playing a role of an important partner of the United States in the region of the South Caucasus. Thank you once again.
And real thanks to you, sir. That was a comprehensive statement. We learned a lot from it. We're going to move on now to the next country in our alphabetical list, and that is Georgia. Mr. Lasha Darsalia is the first Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Georgia. He has an extensive background in government. I'm not going to take our time to list everything there, but sir, we are very eager to hear your words this morning. The floor is now yours. Please go ahead. And you, there you go.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, dear Ambassador Holland, dear friends and colleagues. I'm delighted to join you, albeit virtually, in this timely discussion commemorating 30 years of partnership between the United States and countries of South Caucasus and Central Asia. Special thanks to the organizers, the Caspian Policy Center, Mr. Evgan Nifty and Ambassador Holland for their work in pushing for close ties between the wider Caspian region and the United States. I really want to use this opportunity and thank the U.S. government generally and Madam Donfried, today's speaker as well, for the supportive words to Georgia and the countries of the region generally. Last year, Georgia marked the 13th anniversary of regaining independence, and since that fateful period, Georgia firmly embarked on a path of democratic development and integration into European and Euro-Atlantic institutions. This path, despite multiple challenges along the way, has been marked by substantial progress, resulting in becoming the NATO aspirant country and important contributor to the international security. Signing the association agreement, including the CFTA and the visa-free regime with the European Union. Georgia is constantly ranked among top countries in easiness of doing business, corruption perception, effective and transparent governance. This progress would not have been possible without the support and assistance United States provided to Georgia since the first days of regaining independence. The U.S. Unwavering support for Georgia's sovereignty, its territorial integrity with internationally recognized borders, as well as continuous engagement and assistance in various areas tailored to Georgia's priorities, has been critical to our success. Through agencies like USAID and Millennium Challenge Corporation, the US promoted economic growth, energy independence, infrastructure development, and education sectors. Over the years, this friendship has evolved into what today is a robust strategic partnership based on shared values and interest, and codified in the U.S.-Georgia Charter on Strategic Partnership, which provides effective framework for further enhanced partnership between our countries. Strategically located at the crossroad of Europe and Asia, and at the Black Sea shore, our region plays an important role connecting East and West, offering significant opportunities for the US companies to enter global markets through expanded transportation and energy infrastructure. Caspian region, with its abundance of energy resources, and the South Caucasus, with its access to the Black Sea, is a critical element for stability and prosperity in the region. Just a few days ago, Georgia celebrated an opening of the new multifunctional terminal located in Georgian port city of Poti. Development of this $120 million project was completed, including through the $50 million funding from the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. Just north from Poti, in city of Batumi, an American company, Tramo, invested $25 million in a new multimodal cargo terminal, enhancing fast and secure transportation of goods from Central Asia to Europe and vice versa, expanding trade and economic relations and fostering interregional security and connectivity. The government of Georgia continues large-scale program to upgrade and further develop the country's backbone infrastructure, such as highways, railway systems, seaport network, and airports. We are also working with the partner countries to develop the Black Sea submarine cable connecting South Caucasus region directly to the Southeast Europe via submarine transmission cable crossing the Black Sea. Unfortunately, Russia's aggressive attempts to assert its influence in Georgia, Ukraine, and elsewhere in the region continues to pose critical challenge to the development and prosperity of the wider region. Occupation of the parts of Georgian territory, annexation of Crimea, and ongoing military buildup in and around Ukraine by Russia significantly hinder the ability of the countries to fully develop potential that the region has. The recent demands put forward by Russia not only target the NATO integration of sovereign countries, but also go against the fundamental principles of the rules-based international order and are intended to undermine the entire European security architecture. We also see Russia's continuous efforts to limit the Western engagement in the South Caucasus as well, including by further enhancing its military footprint in this region. In current circumstances, greater engagement of the United States and the West is needed more than ever. Georgia remains committed to facilitate and promote closer engagement and support peace and regional security in the region. For this reason, during the 2021 UN General Assembly by the Prime Minister of Georgia proposed a new Peace Neighborhood Initiative, which envisions some participation of all three states of the South Caucasus, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia, and is intended to advance confidence building and dialogue between the countries. This new initiative is not substituting, countering, or opposing any other cooperation formats. Rather, Georgia hopes to serve as an honest broker to contribute to the normalization of regional relations. Dear colleagues, Georgia remains a close and reliable ally of the United States in the region, and we are committed to enhance our strategic partnership in all areas of cooperation, including defense and security, as well as economic and trade relations through the US-Georgia Free Trade Agreement and opening of a US-DFC regional office. We are confident that enhanced partnership between our countries will have a strong stabilizing effect and will advance peace and prosperity in the region. I'll stop here. Thank you for your attention.
And thanks very much to you, sir. What impresses me about presentations like we're hearing this morning is how much we learn and how much the reality on the ground is so different from the sometimes extremist headlines that we read in the international press. Thank you very much for that. We're now going to cross the Caspian, and our next speaker is going to be a dear colleague of many years, Ambassador Yerjan Hassi of Kazakhstan. He is now the Deputy Chief of Staff of the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and also the Special Representative of the President for International Cooperation. Ambassador Hassi, the floor is yours, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Ambassador Hoagland. Welcome to Central Asia. Dear friends, excellencies, distinguished participants. First, I would like to thank Evgan Nifty and Ambassador Hoagland for hosting us today. And I also would like to join previous speakers and extend my congratulations on the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the countries of the region and the United States. Today's agenda underlines the importance of mutually beneficial cooperation and promotion of sustainable economic growth across the entire Trans-Caspian region. Kazakhstan's main priority is to maintain stability and expand cooperation in the Caspian region, including in the field of energy, transit transport, environment, and security. Since the early days of our independence, Caspian energy diplomacy paved the way for economic cooperation with the United States, starting from the Tengiz oil and gas fields and landmark deals with Chevron and ExxonMobil, to remarkable investments and cooperation and the sustainable growth in the region. Along with trade and economic cooperation, we can be proud of many other successful joint projects with the United States. First and foremost, in the field of nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament, such as famous Non-Lugar Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, the establishment of the IAEA Low-Enriched Uranium Bank, and the decommission of the BN-350 plutonium production reactor located in Aktau, eastern shore of the Caspian Sea. These are indeed just a few examples when our joint efforts led to the strengthening of regional and global security. The coronavirus pandemic is testing the global community and highlighting the shortcomings of international cooperation. It is worth to note that we have long-standing partnership with the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. It became even more instrumental during the pandemic. Kazakhstan was among the first 10 countries to develop its own vaccine, Kazvak. It is actively being used in Kazakhstan. Its registration with the World Health Organization is underway, and we appreciate the U.S. assistance in this process. Because of the size, central location, economic performance, Kazakhstan has been a crucial contributor to trans-Eurasian connectivity and a prominent advocate of regional economic integration. Over the past 30 years, Kazakhstan has invested about $30 billion in infrastructure development. Today, Kazakhstan accounts for 70% of regional land transit traffic from east to west and from north to south and vice versa. In 2018, we signed the Convention on the Legal Status of the Caspian Sea to create favorable conditions and facilitate the development and strengthen peaceful cooperation among countries of the region. Today, we see multiple opportunities for practical engagement with the United States across a number of key policy priorities, be it countering terrorism or other security challenges, be it tackling the climate emergency, promoting women's economic empowerment, people-to-people relations, and many more. Distinguished friends, on a separate note, I would like to make a brief comment on the recent events in Kazakhstan. Peaceful demonstrations in Almaty and some other regions were hijacked by perpetrators, well-organized criminals, and violent extremists. The criminal activities caused mass violence, threatening to undermine our constitutional order and considered as an act of insurrection. It was a stress test for us. Now, the worst of the crisis appeared to be behind us. Currently, we are conducting full and transparent investigation into the tragic events. We clearly differentiate treatment of those who protested peacefully from those who were engaged in violence and looting, and accord due process to all. Kazakhstan remains committed to its international obligations and universal principles of human rights and rule of law. As a state, as a nation, we have learned the lessons, and we, of course, will quickly recover. I would like to underline that the strength of the state cannot be measured by crisis, unrest, or its absence. Rather, the extent to which it can withstand such shocks. The President of Kazakhstan is strongly adhered to continuing an irreversible process of further political, economic, and institutional modernization of our country. We appreciate that the United States continues to stand with Kazakhstan in the face of this tragedy. We hope that the US will continue to be a steadfast partner for Kazakhstan in supporting its program of reforms and jointly tackling global challenges and opportunities. We look forward to seeing more high-level contacts with the Biden administration and visits to the region. I hope today's discussion and exchange of views will seize the prospect to find a new avenues for closer cooperation between the countries of the Caspian region and the United States. Thank you for your attention.
And thanks to you, Ambassador, for that very important statement. I'm sure there will be questions that we will come to later in the program, but we are going to move forward to our next several speakers yet, and we will have time for Q's and A's. Next on our agenda is Ambassador Vachabov Amanbayev, the ambassador of the Kyrgyz Republic to the United States. Before arriving in Washington, Ambassador Amanbayev was the Chief of Staff of the government of the Kyrgyz Republic. And so over to you, sir. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear colleagues, dear Mr. Lu, Ambassador Hugland, Mr. Nifty, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers of today's conference for organizing and for the invitation, and to congratulate the colleagues from Caspian Forum Center on the first anniversary of the activity. The past year, 2021, and the new year, 2022, have become a significant milestone in relations between the countries of our region, including the United States, who are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the establishment of our diplomatic relations. For my country, for Kyrgyz Republic, this anniversary is very particularly important because it coincided with the 30th anniversary of independence. Dear colleagues, today we can all say with confidence that we have come a long way and done a lot using great opportunities to develop relations between our countries. In fact, looking back at our 30 years history, we see that our relationship has strengthened in all key dimensions. And I think that we shouldn't forget that only together our countries are much better prepared, better equipped to face the common risk and the challenges on the global scale. There is no other way, I think. I remember at our meeting last year, you remember too, we all warmly noted the importance of creating the organization of Turkic-speaking states. Yes, in fact, there is a very important event for all of us, which means we have advanced far and done useful things, but there isn't enough. I think, and I'm more than sure that again we must tirelessly seek common ground and to find and to form common ground and common values. Only then history will give us unique chance to unite the efforts of our countries in the name of peace and the prosperity of our peoples. Because we are all neighbors, and no one will give us another neighbors. And there is a proverb, Turkish proverb, says, close neighbor is more dearer, more precious than distant relative. It is customary for our peoples to say only kind words to the hero of the day. And today we list with joy, satisfactions, all positive achievements that our countries have achieved today. But it would be very short-sighted from our part not to take into account the experience of those temporary failures that our countries faced during the first decades of independence. So we can reach new heights and avoid repeating the mistakes of the initial period of formation. Admittedly, there is some anxiety about what will look ahead, but it is due to increasing complexity of our international agenda, growing social appeals that transcended borders. Taking this opportunity today, I would like to emphasize as the main message of my speech a powerful thesis about peaceful sky, social justice, and the ability of mankind to solve all problems with the power of reason of humanity. In conclusion, dear colleagues, I would like to congratulate the colleagues of the Caspian Forum on the, again, on 5th anniversary of their work, and thank you for opportunity to meet today. Thank you for attention.
And thank you, Ambassador. As always, we learn a lot when we listen carefully to the very detailed and important things that you had to say about the region. We'll keep that in mind, and I'm sure there'll be questions for you as we move along. But next, we're going to go directly to Ambassador Faruk Hamralizoda, the ambassador of Tajikistan to the United States. Prior to his appointment here in Washington, he was the chairman of the State Committee on Investment and State Property Management of Tajikistan. Very experienced senior official. Ambassador, we turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador Hoagland. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to extend my gratitude to the Caspian Policy Center for inviting me to the webinar dedicated to 30th anniversary of U.S. Caspian diplomatic relations. I would like to sincerely congratulate the United States of America and countries of the Caspian region with 3 decades of fruitful cooperation. As recently we celebrated together the 30th anniversary of the independence, of the Republic of Tajikistan, let me extend my sincere gratitude to government of the United States of America for their hospitality and continuous cooperation. My heartfelt thanks to the esteemed colleagues, ambassadors, for time shared with us on this significant date for Tajikistan. I wish to congratulate esteemed ambassadors on the achievements and progress of your countries in the last 3 decades. We are especially pleased on the growing cooperation and strengthening of friendship between peoples and nations. Independence has given to Tajikistan a real opportunity to choose the present and future path of the nation and build our beloved country as a sovereign, democratic, law-based and secular state. Along with that, I would like to emphasize that Tajikistan is amidst the region's delicate and complex environment. Its geographical location puts Tajikistan at the forefront of countering most challenging current threats. And we have deliberately assumed vital security tasks such as countering terrorism and extremism, drugs and arms trafficking, organized crime, as well as illegal migration that are fortunately rapidly intensifying. Tajikistan is always in favor of the development of constructive cooperation with regional countries based on friendship, cooperation, good neighborliness, mutual respect and trust in the region. This year, the Republic of Tajikistan and the United States are celebrating another remarkable date, 30 years of partnership and cooperation. Obviously, these were 3 decades of cooperation and action which positively affected to the life of people, established active formats and mechanisms, mutually beneficial cooperation in political, economic, security and other priority spheres have steadily enhanced. The COVID pandemic has drastically changed the world. People and governments all over the globe recognize the importance and necessity of solidarity in response not only to COVID, but other global challenges. In this regard, Tajikistan appreciated U.S. government timely assistance in responding to COVID threats. Ladies and gentlemen, today the world needs prompt joint action for safety, prosperity, health, and justice. We are convinced that along with the gradual recovery from the COVID, joint efforts shall be directed towards strengthening and expanding partnership on sustainable development, peace and security, climate change and green energy as a preconditions for the sustainable world. From its side, the Republic of Tajikistan continuously makes valuable contribution to the global and regional development process. We take great pride in Tajikistan initiatives related to water and climate change issues that are widely supported by international community. Remarkably, already the 4th initiative of Tajikistan International Decade for Action, Water for Sustainable Development, is under implementation, and at the national, regional, and global level, we look forward, dear friends, to welcome your country delegation to the high-level international conference, Water for Sustainable Development, on 6-9 June this year in Dushanbe. Dear friends, apparently today, the needs and demand for global, regional, country partnership are as strong as ever. In this regards, improved connectivity, strong cooperation, shared prosperity, and increased resilience become key priorities, preconditions, and foundation for future peace, stability, and development in the region. In conclusion, I wish each and every one of you happiness, well-being, prosperity, and success. Thank you for your attention.
And thanks to you, Ambassador. On a personal note, I'm recalling that my first ambassadorship from the United States was to the country of Tajikistan, a stunningly beautiful country with amazingly warm people. And I will never forget that experience. Now we will go on. One more speaker before we go to our questions and answers. And for those of you who are watching, I remind you, you can submit questions through the Q&A function, which should be at the bottom of your screen. But now we turn to Ambassador Javalan Vachabov of Uzbekistan, who was first Deputy Foreign Minister in his country before he became the ambassador to Washington. I'm very pleased to turn the floor over to a wonderful colleague, Ambassador Vachabov. To you, sir.
So I want to begin to deliver my remarks by saying happy birthday to Afghan Nifty and wishing you sound health and the best of luck in all your future endeavors. So thank you, Ambassador Hoagland. It's a distinct pleasure for me to speak today as we are celebrating this month the 30th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Uzbekistan and the United States. Our relations date back to the very birth of Uzbekistan as a sovereign nation. The United States was among first, recognized Uzbekistan's independence and remains a steadfast partner through these 30 years of journey, supporting and encouraging our young nation, contributing to its success and maintaining strong bilateral relations. To support young nations' aspirations in preserving and strengthening the sovereignty and seeking international recognition of Uzbekistan's regional and global role, the U.S. Secretary of State James Addison Baker visited Tashkent in 1992. And during the first official visit to the United States in 1996, first Uzbekistan President Islam Karimov inaugurated new embassy in D.C., given impetus to further deepening multifaceted bilateral relations. Cooperation between our countries, especially in security dimension, enhanced to a new level after 9/11 terrorist attacks, when Uzbekistan availed itself to provide logistical support for the US-led counterterrorism campaign in Afghanistan. And signing the declaration on establishing strategic partnership 20 years ago became a significant milestone in the history of bilateral relations that created a foundation for ever strengthening political, economic, and security cooperation, as well as people-to-people ties. And over the years, Uzbekistan and the United States have developed into strategic partners. Our ties have withstood the test of time and have served both our countries and peoples. And since 2016, our cooperation has grown so substantially across all areas of our bilaterals and regional collaboration. And our relationship has entered into a new era of strategic partnership. During the state visit of President Mirziyoyev in May 2018, reinvigorating bilateral trade relations with multi-billion contracts, so fostering cooperation in higher education and academic research, agriculture and energy, and meal-to-meal partnership. Elevation of annual political consultations, first launched in 2009, to the level of a strategic partnership dialogue with an inaugural dialogue took place in Tashkent last December. So creates new opportunities to advance even closer and stronger cooperation. And our strategic partnership with the United States so continues to gather momentum, and it is not an overstatement to say never before have our relations enjoyed such depth and breadth. Today, Uzbekistan and the United States are strategic partners in security, sharing common goals for peaceful Central Asia, so committing resources and expertise to support border security, combating international terrorism, organized crime, and illicit trafficking in arms and drugs. We have enhanced meal-to-meal partnership aimed at improving defense capabilities. At the same time, so we appreciate the U.S. recognition and respect of our defense doctrine with the principle of non-participation in military political blocs that has proved to be an anchor of stability in Uzbekistan and far beyond. We are growing partners in business. Day by day, Uzbekistan is becoming a favorable investment target so for U.S. companies willing to increase their presence in the region by using untapped opportunities. And we appreciate the U.S. support of Uzbekistan reforms that seek to create an open, transparent, market-based economy that welcomes and protects foreign investment. Moving to another pillar in our bilaterals, so we are steadfast partners in development and education, reinforced by the establishment of the full-fledged USAID's mission in Uzbekistan, and implementing partners to support reforms and development in Uzbekistan, as well as broad range university partnerships. So with Webster University from St. Louis, Missouri, first ever American university that launched its campus so in my home country. So on the fourth pillar of our bilateral relationship, we appreciate the U.S. support of the measures Uzbekistan has taken to advance human rights and fundamental freedoms, including advancing freedom of religion and ending forced labor. And Uzbekistan and the United States have shared priorities for regional development. Our collaboration within the C5+1 regional diplomatic platform, successfully launched in November 2015 during then Secretary of State John Kerry's visit to Samarkand, has also significantly increased. So we are looking forward to further expanding regional engagement within the C5+1 diplomatic platform and the U.S. Central Asia Trade and Investment Framework Agreement, as well as achieving tangible outcomes in our partnership in infrastructure development, energy, transport, so environmental protection, and addressing the challenges caused by climate change. Uzbekistan has made regional connectivity so the centerpiece of its regional policy. We pursued our main objective to promote greater connectivity between the regions via trade, transport, and energy links during the international conference, Central and South Asia Regional Connectivity Challenges and Opportunities in July last year, attended by Homeland Security Advisor, Dr. Elizabeth Sherwood Randall, and other regional leaders. And we hope that the United States will further support the establishment of network of strategic communications between the regions, which will fully center to the transport and transit potential and have a multiple effect on the sustainable development of the entire Central Asia and beyond. And we understand that many initiatives for a broader economic interconnectivity could be effectively implemented once lasting stability will be established. And we adhere to the principled position of the importance of developing of a post-conflict strategy for Afghanistan. And it is time for the international community to unite the efforts in order to avoid further deteriorating of a humanitarian situation in Afghanistan, focus on economic recovery of the country. And we are standing ready to make Terminus Cargo Center that provides shortest route to Afghanistan, its storage and transportation services available for the delivery of humanitarian aid to the people affected by the ongoing humanitarian crisis. And for the past 30 years, supporting independence, sovereignty and territorial integrity, advancing good governance, rule of law, and freedoms were important pillars of the U.S. engagement in Central Asia. And I would like to emphasize that these all will remain fundamentally important for many years to come. However, with changing dynamics in the region, many emerging opportunities and untapped potential, so I believe that the United States could move beyond and pursue much more proactive foreign policy that promotes partnerships in trade and investment, science and technology, education and capacity building, engaging within international financial institutions. And we firmly believe that through economic interconnectivity and growth, we'll be able to strengthen resilience to many challenges and ensure prosperity of our people. Thank you for your attention.
And thanks to you, Ambassador Vachabov. Once again, a really comprehensive statement of looking forward and what needs to be done. On a personal note, I would simply add that the very first time I set foot in Central Asia was in Tashkent. This was a long time ago, 1993. I served in our brand new embassy at that time, which was actually the Komsomol headquarters that had been offered to us. And I was the press spokesman for our embassy, 93 to 95. Look how things have changed during that period of time. And yet some things haven't changed. And the thing that hasn't changed is U.S. relations, steady, firm relations with every country in the region. As the moderator, I'm going to begin asking a question or two here. And in this first question, I'm going to actually incorporate a few questions that have already come in. So let me put it this way. If you had to name only one thing, what would that be for the United States to strengthen its relations with your country and the region? Or to put it another way, what can the United States offer that your other major partners cannot offer? Looking forward for the next 30 years, what should the United States be doing for your country and for the region? I'm going to open the floor to anyone who wants to speak because we have some of the ambassadors from the region whose officials were speaking in their capitals. The floor is open to absolutely anyone. Just please feel free to speak out or raise your hand if more than one person is trying to speak at the same time. Who would like to go first? Yes, sir, Ambassador Hassi Khan, to you.
Thank you, Ambassador Hoagland. As once again, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation for organizing this very important event. I would be very brief, but I think that the stability in the region serves the best interest of the United States, and this is first. With the new supply chain configuration, the transit potential, its further development should be also of great importance, not only to the region, but to the distant neighbor who is in the face of the United States. We certainly working hard, not only Kazakhstan, but I'm sure many other countries in the region, on the problem of low carbon development, green energy, and we know that this issue is very high on the agenda of the Biden administration, and I think that we already discussed it within the format of C5+1. I think that given the pandemic, the biosafety issue remains to be on very high on the agenda, and other areas, I just wanted to say that Kazakhstan is the second largest Bitcoin mining destination in the world. And the fintech, banking, finance, e-commerce, all these things are of great importance. Thank you. That would be my answer.
And thanks to you, Ambassador. I'm going to note that someone else has joined us here, and that's a representative from Georgia, Director of the Americas, and that is, I'm sorry, you're jumping around here, Ms. Hatuna Avaselova. Madam, would you like to take a few minutes to make a few comments, because we haven't heard from you? And you can answer this question, or if you have something else you'd want to add, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Ambassador Hoagland, thank you very much, first of all, for this opportunity to participate in this event, and also for this question as well. I think our first Deputy Minister, Lasha Darsalia, spoke quite extensively about that. It would be really hard for me to name one single thing that we would like United States to do, but generally I would say that we have a very robust and strong strategic partnership, and basically both sides, and we are really committed to further enhance this cooperation that has been sort of evolving and developing over the last 30 years of diplomatic relations and friendship actually that we have with the United States. But it is notable that especially against the background of the recent development that we see in and around Ukraine, that basically started in 2008 with the invasion in Georgia, and we see this strategy of aggressive pattern of behavior in the region. All these events underline the importance of the United States and generally of the Western active engagement and active participation in the developments in the region. And what we would really like to see more active United States and the West engaged in Georgia. And I think strategic partnership between United States and Georgia is a good opportunity to move in that direction. And I would also like to underline that we would like to see more soft power of the U.S. exercised in the region, which is a very important. I would add the more economic cooperation, more United States investments. All this really matters for the region, for stability and prosperity in the region. And that would definitely benefit Georgia, the United States, and generally that Caspian region that with this I would like to congratulate with 30 years of diplomatic relations with the United States that we celebrate this year. So that's actually it. We would like to see more United States and more Western engagement in the region.
Thank you so very much for that. And I am especially pleased that you mentioned more soft power. Things like educational exchanges. You don't see the change that causes immediately, but it certainly pays off in the long run. So thank you very much for that comment. Do others from the region have answers to this question they'd like to emphasize? Do you have anything? I don't see a hand, so let me pose another question here. The Caspian Policy Center is an independent think tank that has close relations to the government of the United States, but it's certainly not run by the government of the United States. We have worked with think tanks in your countries throughout the region. And my question is, what role do you think tanks can play in building international relations? Are we just talking heads, as someone likes to say once in a while, or do we really have a role in the foreign policy, international and for the region? Is there someone who can answer that question for us, please? Yes, Mr. Hajiev in Baku, I would love to hear your point of view on this.
Thank you, Ambassador, once again. And also, I take this opportunity to thank all speakers for their very interesting and valuable views and perspectives, how we can develop further cooperation, first regional-wise, and between the regions of the South Caucasus and Central Asia, also our bilateral cooperation with the United States. As regards to the role of the Caspian Policy Center, and I would like to really appreciate your role, Ambassador, and also all entire team of the Caspian Policy Center, and including Afghan Nifty and other colleagues on many occasions. You have also visited Azerbaijan and some neighboring countries. What we need in real terms in development of the regional cooperation and also our cooperation with the United States is an important regional platform where we can talk and discuss and identify our way forward. I can really assuredly say where Caspian Policy Center provides such a platform for our discussion and comprehensive and regional-wise discussion. And also yet another comparative advantage, I believe, that a Caspian policy has, and also distinguish Caspian Policy Center from other think tanks and institutions, with all due respect, as a key regional knowledge and regional expertise. That's also fundamentally important. There could be many different international institutions, including the United States and some other places, but the key feature of the Caspian Policy Center is that it has a very unique regional-wise and expertise and knowledge based on such an understanding, and it also has a very good network. People like you and some other colleagues that further strengthens this network and further builds up this network, and also provides a platform for the regional countries to communicate their messages through this platform to the appropriate institutions in the United States. Therefore, it's a crucial, important institutions, and we highly value your contribution and your hard work.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You're very kind in your comments. Is there anyone else that could speak to this point, please? Ways that think tanks in your country, think tanks in my country, including the Caspian Policy Center, how can we be more helpful in the bilateral relations of Washington and your country and Washington to the region? Is there anyone who has a further thought on that?
Ambassador Hoagland,
yes, sir.
you permit me, first I would like to recall a very important visit of the delegation of the Caspian Policy Center to Kazakhstan last summer. And I think it was very fruitful, and we appreciate the report that you've been produced after your visit. And I think this kind of visits, this kind of reports certainly bring our country closer together. And I personally believe that the think tanks should be viewed as a track to diplomacy. And it was also as again help to build confidence and build trust to each other. And the more analysis, the more experts interact with each other, the better it will be for us and for the United States. So I'll wholeheartedly support many more conferences, seminars, roundtables, and I think that the Caspian Policy Center plays a crucial role in that. Thank you very much.
And thanks to you for that. I really appreciate it. As I said, a number of questions have come in. I'm trying to aggregate them into a general question. Just a minute, Ambassador, and I will turn to you. But let me say that there are a few questions that are very, very direct. And rather than looking at the broader issues, we're going to stay with the broader issues for a while. I see a hand up, and it was Ambassador. Now, no longer visible. Yes, sir, there you are, Amanbaya. Please go ahead, sir.
So I wanted to add my idea about your question, second question, about the role of international think tanks in improving relations between the United States and the region. And I think role of international think tanks very high, because every country in our region trying to carry out different kind of reforms in their own country, political reform, economical reform, and the special last days we see some kind of accidents took place in region in order to explain and to say to the world and we should work. We have to work with international think tanks as yours. Therefore, I think role of think tanks in improving relations between the United States and the region very high. Thank you.
And thanks to you for that. I really appreciate that addition. I'm going to consolidate a few other questions into one more question here. I think we still have a few minutes, and this becomes a geopolitical question. And it's this: there are, and it's no surprise, we read about it every day, there are now currently tensions between the United States and Russia, between Russia and the region. The question is, do these kinds of tensions have an influence on the countries of the region in a way that sometimes it's difficult to define, but looking forward years down the road, can you see how that would make any kind of change in the bilateral relationship? Or to put it another way, what should the United States be doing to remain a strong partner in the region? I know that's a little bit of a sensitive question, and I remember from my period as a member of the U.S. government that I had to speak only for my government, not for myself. But I wonder if you do have anything that you'd like to add to that. I see no hands up and a lot of silence. I have one final question then that I understand that, and please, I know how sensitive that question was. I have one final question. In a number of the comments from Central Asia, we heard about the C5+1. We heard comments from across the Caspian about the C5+1, and perhaps adding Azerbaijan and others into it. Looking down the road, would it be useful for the United States to come out in strong support of the nations that we're talking to today, forming a bloc among yourselves to increase stability, prosperity in the region? Other parts of the world have done that. ASEAN in East Asia, the Baltic Council in Northern Europe. Do you see the possibility of eventual blocs or one bloc forming from the countries in the region that we're talking to today? Does anyone have a comment on that, please? Yes, Georgia, Ms. Vasileva.
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, just to make sure, I just wanted to go back to your previous question, make sure I understood it correctly. You are mentioning right now the discussions that are ongoing regarding the European security architecture. Was it correct that I understood? I think this is the very important question, and basically, our Deputy Prime Minister touched upon it briefly. That's a very important question for the region, and especially for Georgia and Ukraine, whose Euro-Atlantic integration is being directly targeted here. And there is no news in this regard that it's a national choice of Georgia to continue on the path of European and Euro-Atlantic integration and NATO integration. Georgia is a NATO aspirant country, and we see Georgia's NATO integration as a way to further enhance security, not only for Georgia, but the regional stability and the cooperation as well, especially in the region, in the Black Sea and South Caucasus region. So it's one of our top foreign policy priorities, and that's very important, that the issue that you are mentioning here. And I would like also to touch upon the comments made by the Deputy Assistant Secretary Karen Donfried, and she exactly has been mentioning these ongoing processes. And in this sense, we are very grateful to the United States for the consultations that they had with Georgia and generally with European allies and partners as well during these diplomatic engagements with Russia. And we hope that We hope that this issue is going to be resolved through the diplomatic path as suggested by the United States and by Karen Donfried, because it's a very important issue for us, and it touches upon the sovereign choice, the right of sovereign choice for foreign policy. Priorities for sovereign countries such as Georgia and Ukraine. So that's very important issue for us.
And thank you so very much for that. We have almost come to the end. We're just a bit over, but Mr. Hajiev, I see if you can give us a very brief comment, and then we will come to our closing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Hajiev.
Thank you, Ambassador. I just wanted to react to the question that you have posed about an regional configuration. And first thing, your first question about the United States relations and also strategic dialogue issue. But based on the experience of Azerbaijani diplomacy, then there wasn't such kind of escalation between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We get used such a usual statement and saying that the diplomatic narrative, we call the parties for the escalation and continuing the dialogue and restraint. And I believe it's also be true in the context of strategic dialogue. And as regards Azerbaijan's own foreign policy, just would like to reiterate that our foreign policy is based on the key fundamental principle of inclusiveness rather than the exclusiveness. And Azerbaijan is open for cooperation with all partners, including our immediate neighboring countries. And our cooperation with another partner doesn't come in no way for the exclusion of another partner. That's the first thing. As regards your second comment about blocking our bloc policy, I would refrain from really calling the regional cooperation in such a context of bloc policy, because Azerbaijan is currently chairing non-aligned movement, and the major philosophy of the non-aligned movement, it was about a non-bloc policy. Therefore, it doesn't maybe resonate well with Azerbaijan's foreign policy priorities. But I would here use rather variable geometry concept, because variable geometry is an open-ended process here. If there is a potential Azerbaijan and Central Asian countries based on the multiple geopolitical identity of Azerbaijan, where at some part we are also sharing brotherly ties with our Central Asian partners, we can come closer and build such a cooperation. On another term, for example, we are building mechanism of trilateral cooperation, where Georgia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, and some other partners are coming together, building such a mechanism. Therefore, instead of such a block concept, we can use a variable, very flexible concept of regional dynamism and regional cooperation that can serve for the mutually beneficial cooperation and partnership. Thank you once again.
And thanks to you, sir, for that. The key word that I heard in your statement there was cooperation, mutual cooperation. Let me close with two very simple sentences. I think that everyone who we have been speaking with today and everyone who is listening can agree that the world does not want a new Cold War. The world does not want a new Iron Curtain. We've moved past that. We're in a new phase looking forward. And with that, I will turn the floor over to our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Efgan Nifty, to close out this important program. Thank you to all of you. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Hoagland, for excellent moderation of this event. I'd like to thank all our colleagues for putting this event together, and our esteemed participants from the region, including Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan. I'd like to thank to our State Department colleagues for helping us to put this event together. Also, my staff as well for hard work they did to produce this event. I'd like to say that this was an important start to our 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between U.S. and the Caspian region. It's just part of our series of events that we're going to continue, and I think we laid a good foundation with this. Even if this is a virtual event, it's good that we started with this, and we're going to continue on the March 30th with another event on the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations, in-person event. We hope to see everyone in that event, including our colleagues from the State Department and also different agencies of U.S. government, and also our colleagues from the region. I'd like to also special thanks to our sponsor Chevron for this event. Thanks for their support as well. Once again, we look forward to continue our dialogue at the Caspian Policy Center platform. And I'd like to thank everyone again for being attendance in this event. We had over 100 attendees, and we really appreciate that. It means that there's a huge attention to what was said here. This event's link will be available on our website and also on our YouTube channel. Please make sure to check out after the event if you want to see the recording. Thanks again. Our best regards from Washington to the Caspian and our colleagues also in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.